The first part of our research told you about wide receiver consistency year over year and how they perform based on where they finished the year before. Now, let's turn and give you the other side of that coin and talk about running backs, because what this running back data could do is it could formulate how you want to be drafting in your fantasy football drafts this year. We talked about wide receiver. In the 5-year percentage rate for wide receivers to repeat as top 12 wide receivers was 38%. The 3-year rate for wide receiver ones to repeat as wide receiver ones was 47%. And what does this mean? As we talked about in this video, go check it out. Wide receivers have become more consistent at the top of the rankings. So you've got your top 7 guys, the wide receivers that you're pretty confident are going to repeat as wide receiver ones.
The safe 7.
Now let's talk about running. The safe. I swear, if you say safe 7 again, we're going to delete the channel. We're never going to do this again. No more.
So much fun.
All right, so let's talk about running backs. Running backs, let's do every year from 2019. 2019, the top 12 to top 12 percentage, 33%. 2020, 50%. So 50% of running back ones for the year before were repeating. And then 41% 2021, 41% 2022, 25% in 2023. So you see a clear decline in consistency rates for top 12 running backs year over year. What should this tell us? I don't think it's telling us anything we didn't already know. Running back has become more volatile, right? And when you're looking at even going down the list here, top 12 running backs and their rate being a top 24 running back the next year was only at 41% last year. The top 12 running backs being a top 36 running back the year, it's only 2/3. 2/3 of top 12 running backs were even top 36 running backs in 2023.
Yeah, when you're comparing that to the previous years, at least it was 100%,
190,
91,
75.
75, and 83 before that.
I mean, the parity at the running back position, and everybody knows this is at an all-time high. However, and this is what we kind of need to establish early in this video as we get into what the data says and what we are going to use as our formula for drafting running backs this year in fantasy football. Data influences our decision, influences our takes in fantasy football, but data does not decide for us, okay? And so we're going to use this data and we're going to say, okay, because of this, we can look at this, we can make this assumption, we can maybe make this change, make this trend to our strategy. However, this data would point to the fact that you almost always want to go hero wide receiver in the first round. Almost always take that wide receiver candidate because they are 25, 30% more safe than a running back, and safety is everything. You don't want to tank your team with an Austin Eckler, so don't take running back. And actually, our take is a little bit different than that.
Yeah, I think the first thing I want to look at here is with this data and with the fact that only 41% or 25% of the running backs last year were previously a top 12 running back the year before. Why do we even have running backs going in the first round? There's obviously a reason for it, but let's just look at the running backs this year that are going in the first round. Christian McCaffrey, okay, best running back in the NFL. If he fails this year, fails the year after, I don't care. I will die with Christian McCaffrey on my roster if I can get my hands on him, and it'll screw me eventually. I don't care. I'm not projecting when he falls off. Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, and Jahmyr Gibbs fringe first round as well. Those are your top 4 running backs that are going right now in the first round of fantasy drafts. And to me, I look at that list of guys, even beyond that, to Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley in the early to mid-second round, and I see a new generation of running backs. I see the death of the old generation of running backs, where just last year, we saw Nick Chubb and Austin Eckler, for example, going in the first round, right?
Yep.
And it didn't work out. Injuries piled up, and they just were not as consistent as they were previously. It was a very dramatic fall off. Now, this time, you are literally looking at every single one of these guys, outside of Christian McCaffrey, who's older. They all are incredibly young. They're all in the prime of their running back career. And they all have astronomical running and receiving upside, every single one of them. And to me, I think that is the really, really big point here. If you can, we have already established this multiple times, you cannot go wrong taking a top 7 wide receiver this year in the first round.
Can't go wrong.
You cannot go wrong with it. It is incredibly safe. Barring injury, you are not going to be screwed if you take one of those top 7 wide receivers. The historical data proves it. So why in the world would you ever consider even taking a running back in the first round with the risk at that position? It's because the upside is astronomical. The chances that these guys can put up 25 points per game is much higher than any of the wide receivers going in the first round, because that's just the nature of the position. The usage that they're going to get is absolutely insane. 25 points per game worthy. That's what we're expecting, at least 22 plus. Like, and you're not getting that at the wide receiver position unless Tyreek Hill goes absolutely bananas or CeeDee Lamb goes bananas again. Like, this is what we're counting on when we're taking running backs in the first round still. And this is that I believe Avery and I's opinion this year in 2024. If you take a running back in the first round, we're very understanding of the pick there.
Absolutely.
We really are, because even though it's never been more volatile in the last 5 years, the upside and the price that you're getting these running backs at has also never been lower. So the payoff you're going to get from these running backs is potentially league winning. Even though they're still going in the first and second round, the price that they're going at is something that we have not seen in quite a while. And it's because running backs left such a bad taste in our mouths from 2023. And I don't blame people for being lower on running backs. I don't blame people for looking at the NFL and just saying, look, the NFL is going with a lot more committees right now. Now, part of that is the talent of the running back position and how really it's kind of a bare landscape out there at the moment. That is part of the passing of the torch from the old generation to the new generation. But I think we're seeing the rise of that new generation with these guys going in the first round, these top 4 guys, and more running backs coming in the future as well.
Right. Yeah, and I think you have to look again at the flip side of this is that there's absolutely going to be regression from some of these running backs. Mm-hmm. And so let's look at last year's production and identify who we think could be regression candidates this year. Yeah. Let's look at the top 12. Again, on average, the 5-year percentage is that about 3 to 4 running backs maintain as top 12 running backs the year after that. Outside of that, most of them aren't top 12 running backs anymore. So I think that number's a little bit higher this year because I think Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, Bijan, Derrick Henry.
Not Derrick Henry.
No. I think Derrick Henry. I'm not saying about that. I'm saying I'd probably say Jahmyr Gibbs. Those 5 are pretty likely to stay in. I think Derrick Henry. I'm curious why you think Derrick Henry is not likely to repeat as a running back 1. Just because
No, I'm not saying he's not likely to. I'm just saying he's definitely a candidate to regress and fall out of the top 12.
I think
let's just be realistic.
I think any of these guys are, though. I think Etienne is. I think Rashad White is. I think Raheem Mostert is the most obvious one here. I think Raheem Mostert is probably the first one.
Mixon as well.
Mixon, I think James Cook also, just because there are more talented running backs that are going to be healthy this year, supposedly. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think Alvin Kamara is also there as well.
Kamara's price reflects that as well.
And his price reflects. And let's look at the price of some of these guys. Actually, you've got the ADP, right? So, where's Rashad White? Rashad White was the running back 4 in points per game last year. Total points.
Everyone's expecting regression from Rashad White going as the RB15 right now. His overall ADP 62.6. So he is going outside of the top 5 rounds in fantasy football.
And so this is a guy that I would say isn't one of the top 3 most likely candidates for me to regress out of the top 12 this year. Although
not outside the top 12. Outside the top 4, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think Rashad White is just as likely to finish as a fringe running back 1 as James Cook is. And where's James Cook 100%. Being drafted?
He's being drafted above him at running back 13.
Okay,
ADP
so again, these are all guys that are fringe running backs 1. You're right on the cusp there. Okay, Kyren Williams is here, and I didn't put Kyren Williams in my for sure repeats list, but I'm pretty confident if Kyren Williams plays an entire season, he's going to be a running back 1. Why? Because he played 12 games last year and he's running back 7 in total
21 points per game would.
And where's he being priced at this year?
His price right now is currently running back 8.
Okay, so he's going in the top 12 running backs. Yep. Let's talk about Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is the guy that finished as running back 1 last year. Where's he being priced at this year in fantasy football?
Right around Kyren Williams, just behind him. Actually, they're going back to back.
He's running back 1 as well. So. Joe Mixon has to be priced outside. I know he is. Raheem Mostert's priced somewhere in the 20s or 30s, right?
Yes.
So he's way down the list. What about Travis Etienne? I'm curious.
Yeah, Etienne is right by Josh Jacobs and James Cook. He's going at running back 11. He's actually before
he's climbed back up a little bit.
He has moved up.
Probably that's where he should be going.
Yes.
Because I think that's his most likely range of outcomes. But again, we just mentioned 6-7 of these guys that are regression candidates this year, right? Who are the guys you really feel good about? McCaffrey, Hall, Bijan. Those are really the only 3 guys.
And I feel more comfortable with Saquon and JT this year than I do Gibbs because I don't know where Gibbs is going to land.
And we've talked about that.
I know he's going to be top 12. I'm not saying that he's going to be outside the top 12. But I wouldn't be crazy enough to say that.
But Gibbs probably doesn't have that top 5 upside that JT and Saquon do have.
Right.
And that's the difference. And so,
unless he goes bananas in the receiving game, which
he could because he's really good. But at the same time, let's look at some other sides of this. Let's look at the top 24 running backs because, again, There are, historically speaking, and last year especially, 40% of top 12 running backs the year before were even in the top 24 last year. So that means some of these guys are not only going to be regression candidates, they're going to fall off the face of the earth.
Right.
Right.
Which some of that you are going to expect. Like if we were to do this with points per game, you would say, well, these numbers are going to be higher because there are the amount of injuries at running back are so much higher than any other offensive position that we play with in fantasy football. So that is a lot of the reason why you see some dramatic fall-offs. People miss significant chunks of the season. But remember, again, like I said in the wide receiver video, those games that they miss still count against you. That's why we're going total points here. And it's just all the more reason to show you why we're taking shots on these guys whose ADP is outside of the top 12 and why we think they have a chance to jump up. Even Tony Pollard at running back 29. He was just being drafted as a top 5 running back last year because people expected him to be just what Zeke Elliott was when he left.
They expected him as a jump-up candidate.
Exactly, and now he's being underpriced because he disappointed last year after putting 1,300 yards from scrimmage up as the only running back there.
And so real quick, let's talk about some potential jumpers this year. This is interesting. You're going to love this. In terms of running back 2s that jump up into the top 12. Over a 5-year period, 21% on average of the players that are running back 2s become running back 1s the next year. The 3-year average of that is only 16%. So that's 2 of 12 of the running back 2s that typically make the jump. From the running backs 25 to 36, so the running back 3s, 16% 5-year average, so that's 2. In the past 3 years, that number has jumped up to 22%. So those have essentially flip-flopped. And so now what you see over a 3-year period, running backs 25 through 36 the year before are actually more likely to jump up and be a top 12 running back than guys that are in the running back 2 range the year before. The most likely explanation for this is injury.
Yeah.
And that makes sense for this year as well. Because, again, you don't see Jonathan Taylor anywhere on the top 24 total points last year.
Right.
You have Saquon Barkley on here, but he's a running back 2. He could be one of the guys that easily could jump up. Who else was 25 through 36 last year? I have this data in front of me.
It's got to be Aaron Jones, 25 to 36.
Devon Achane, 25.
Yep.
Perfect candidate.
Yep.
Perfect candidate. I gotta say,
technically Josh
Jacobs is one of those candidates. It sucks to say that, but Jonathan Taylor is 33. Ramondre Stevenson, dark horse, 35.
Ramondre's a big one.
He's a big one there. Aaron Jones was 38. So again, all those guys.
You know what else this tells me too? When you're looking at those numbers, even though they flip-flop from running back 2 to running back 3, the overall percentages are still very low. I mean, you're talking 15 to 20%.
And so here's what we know. The running back 1 retention rate is low. The running back 2 retention rate is pretty low. And then the jumpers are not all that likely to jump up. And so it speaks to across the board, you pretty much cannot predict running back. And so,
it's also a reason why I would be taking shots on these rookie running backs as well. And we have talked about this. If there is a rookie running back heading into an offense with respectable enough draft capital and opportunity, and there's an avenue for him to be a running back 1 in his offense, then you want to be taking shots on those guys in the later rounds at the running back position. Kamani Vidal is a popular but big and relevant example. Jonathan Brooks going in the 7th round right now. He was drafted to be their top option, right? Even Trey Benson. This is why Trey Benson is so popular. I'm lower on Trey Benson. Avery's lower on Trey Benson this year because we're that much higher on James Conner. But the thought process is understandable, and there's a reason that he's going where he's going at price right now, right? And you've got these other running backs too, like Dylan Lobby we've talked about as a guy who has an avenue to potentially take a significant role in his offense in Vegas because Zamir White really is kind of just as unproven. Outside of the small sample size of production he showed last year. Now, Zamir White is a pretty decent shot at his price as well.
Right.
But again, this is why you want to take these shots on these younger rookie running backs that are coming into the NFL because they've never been able to showcase what they can or can't do in the NFL. And we know that they're in offenses that need running back production and they need volume there.
And so here to further prove that point about the injuries, the rate of guys that were running back 3s jumping up to running back 2s the next year at 5-year average 3%. So they're almost never jumping from running back 3 to running back 2. The running back 3s that jump are almost always going back into the top 12.
Yep.
And that makes sense. And so again, with running back, across the board, the volatility is insane. The data points to taking wide receiver up front, and then outside of that, there's a huge range of running backs. You could take any of them you want to.
Range of running backs?
There's a huge range of running backs, Silly Wabbit, that you could take, and you probably feel good about it. However, the hero running back strategy this year is still one that if people want to go that route, we respect him.
And if it works out, they're probably winning their league.
And actually, the top comment on that video talks about going double running back and how people actually feel better about doing that this year. And I think that's a very open-minded take. I am in support of this.
Yes.
I'm in support of this. Yes, there's technically pretty good data to support taking a wide receiver in round 2 through 4, really.
The theoretical value payoff has never been higher.
For running backs,
because we've never seen these few running backs going in the top 2 rounds.
And again, data is great. Data is important. Data influences what we do with fantasy football, but it's not everything. It's not going to make decisions for us. We're going to use our brains to make decisions, even though our brains suck sometimes. So, talk about the draft guide.
Yeah, so if you want to get our draft guide, which talks about all these different running back, wide receiver, tight end, and quarterback strategies that we have for you guys, including in-depth analysis on each position, in-depth analysis on every single player going into top 12 rounds of your fantasy drafts.
That's a lot.
You can get that in our very detailed, very well done draft guide for 2024. You can go to flockfantasy.com/domain, use code domain, and you'll get 30% off of all of our products, and you'll get access to that draft guide. You'll get access to all of these databases that we have for the content that we've been putting out on this channel as well. There's a ton of great stuff over there at the site. So go to flockfantasy.com/domain, use code domain, again, get 30% off, get that real sweet looking draft guide, and I promise you will not regret it. The amount of blood, sweat, tears, and time that us and our team have spent on that draft guide over the last couple of months has been crazy, and we've had some really incredible findings in that draft guide as well. So.
Yeah, make sure you drop a like on this video. Make sure you subscribe if you play fantasy football. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers soon. We're trying to get as many subscribers as we freaking can, and you guys can help us do that. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you later.